The floating city of Valruin's Reach hung like a jewel against the velvet black of space. Massive spires of shimmering metal and glass rose from the vast orbital platform, shimmering with thousands of lights that blinked like distant stars. This was the heart of the Galactic conquered, a coalition of 37 species whose combined power had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Now, they gathered here in unprecedented numbers to end the longest and bloodiest conflict in millennia, the 13th Expansion War. The ambassadors filed through polished halls adorned with banners of gold and azure, each species represented by intricate symbols of heritage and power. Velvet-clad envoys exchanged icy smiles and veiled threats beneath the grand dome. Every eye was on the newcomers, humans. The human delegation arrived late, their sleek transport vessel cutting through the cloud of docking ships with a subtle defiance. Inside the ship, Ambassador Kira Holt stood at the observation window, eyes sharp as stars. Her dark hair was pulled, back in a no-nonsense braid. Years of combat and politics had etched resolve into her face. "This isn't just a summit," Kira muttered to Lieutenant Commander Arlen, her second-in-command. "It's a battlefield disguised as diplomacy." Arlen nodded, his gaze scanning the tense corridors as the ship docked. "Everyone underestimates us. That's their mistake." As the human team disembarked, the atmosphere shifted. The Valari delegates, tall and angular with eyes like molten silver, sneered openly. The Zarn, reptilian and scarred from war, exchanged sharp whispers that carried like poison. Around them, other species, majestic avians, crystalline beings and shadowy phantasms, watched with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Kira moved with purpose. The human military's reputation had spread far and wide, unpredictable, ferocious, and unrelenting, but the Concord's leaders still regarded them as barbaric interlopers. The galaxy's latest children, Valari diplomat Salen Vorin had called them just yesterday. The summit chamber was colossal, an oval hall surrounded by floating platforms where delegates sat in tiered seats. Massive hollow screens projected the scale of the war, battlefronts burning, fleets clashing, planets devastated. The Concord was eager to cement peace. But peace, Kira knew, was a fragile illusion here. As the opening speeches droned on, a sudden, violent explosion rocked the docking bay. Alarms screamed, and the delegates gasped. Human security forces, clad in adaptive armor, immediately sprang into action, racing toward the source. Outside the massive windows, plumes of smoke curled against the star-studded void. A group of masked assailants wielded exotic energy weapons, launching a coordinated attack on the docked ships. Panic rippled through the crowd as the attackers moved with deadly precision. Kira's voice crackled over the comms, calm but commanding. "All units, engage and contain. Protect the delegates at all costs." The human security team flowed like a storm, their movements fluid and efficient. They didn't just react. They anticipated. Shields flared, energy blasts met and scattered, and within moments the attackers were subdued or fleeing. Delegates watched, stunned, as the humans formed a defensive perimeter. It was more than skill. It was a display of tactical brilliance, honed by the brutal realities of the 13th Expansion War. Salen Vorin's eyes narrowed. "Such barbarism," he whispered bitterly, "using violence in a place meant for peace." Kira's lips curled into a tight smile. To her, it was a demonstration. Humans were not victims here, nor pawns to be dismissed. They were a force that the galaxy would soon have to reckon with. As the summit resumed, unease thickened the air. Quiet conversations buzzed with speculation. Who was behind the attack? Was it an attempt to sabotage the peace process, or a warning aimed at humanity? Kira returned to her seat, scanning the faces around her. Some hid fear, others barely concealed contempt, but all underestimated the human spirit and the fire that fueled it. She leaned toward Arlen, voice low. "They want to break us before we even begin. Let them try." Outside, the stars blinked, coldly, indifferent to the fragile hopes of peace or the simmering tension among the galaxy's most powerful species. Inside Valruin's Reach, the game had only just begun. The diplomatic chambers of Valruin's Reach gleamed with an opulence that masked the simmering hostility beneath. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light onto polished floors, but the atmosphere was far from celebratory. Behind the smiles and formal pleasantries, every word was measured, every gesture calculated. Ambassador Kira Holt sat at the long, curved table reserved for the human delegation, her fingers tapping lightly against the smooth surface. She had spent the hours since the docking bay attack combing through intelligence reports, intercepted communications, and whispered rumors. The summit was a chessboard, and the Concord's oldest players had already moved against humanity with subtle but ruthless precision. Kira's second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Arlen, approached, his brow furrowed. "Ambassador, you need to see this." He handed her a data slate. The screen flickered to life, displaying grainy footage captured by a covert drone. Valari operatives slipping into human-controlled spaceports, planting devices, sabotaging shipments. Worse, the footage showed masked figures dressed in human combat gear launching attacks on civilian colonies, attributed to humans in intercepted broadcasts. "False flag operations," Kira said quietly, her eyes narrowing. "They want the galaxy to believe humans are the aggressors, the warmongers." A cold laugh escaped her. Classic. The Valari and Zarn had always been masters of deception, wielding propaganda as effectively as any weapon. But this was more than politics. It was a plan to isolate and break humanity by painting them as enemies of peace. Kira stood abruptly. "We need to expose this, before it's too late." Meanwhile, in a shadowed corner of the summit complex, Valari diplomat Ceylan Vorin met discreetly with an influential Zarn commander, General Karshkal. Their whispered conversation was laced with contempt. "The humans have become a cancer," Ceylan hissed. "Their defiance threatens to unravel the Concord's fragile balance. We must ensure they never rise beyond their station." Karshkal nodded grimly. "The Concord Council supports our efforts, but they desire subtlety. The galaxy fears open war, but we can cripple humanity through isolation and distrust." Ceylan's eyes gleamed coldly. "Then let the humans walk their path to ruin. We'll be waiting." Back in the human delegation's quarters, Kira convened a private meeting with her senior officers and trusted allies. The room was tense, lit only by the faint glow of holographic maps and encrypted messages. "We face enemies who fight in the shadows," Kira said. "The Concord's Peace Summit is a mask for their true objective, to contain us, to dismantle our strength." Her eyes swept the room. "We cannot allow this. We must act carefully, but decisively." Arlen spoke up. "We've intercepted several communication channels. Sabotage is underway across multiple systems. Supply lines are compromised and our colonies are being framed." Kira nodded. "We'll release the evidence to the galactic media. Transparency is our weapon." A murmur of agreement filled the room, but not all allies were eager to back humanity. At a side table, representatives of several older species whispered anxiously. The avian High Delegate Miria leaned close to a crystalline emissary, voice laced with doubt. "The humans may bring strength, but their recklessness could ignite another war. We must tread carefully." The crystalline emissary shimmered in thought. "Yet the Concord's duplicity is undeniable. Trust has eroded." Meanwhile, deep within the council chambers, the Concord chairperson raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "We seek peace. We will not be swayed by provocations or accusations. Let the evidence be presented through official channels, not inflammatory leaks." Kira's eyes burned with frustration. Official channels were the Concord's playground, a place designed to stall and dilute truth. As night fell over Valruin's Reach, Kira stood alone on a balcony overlooking the vastness of space. The stars were silent witnesses to the fragile web of alliances and betrayals. Arlen joined her quietly. "Do you think we can break through the facade?" Kira's gaze was steely. "We have to. If we don't, the galaxy will see us as the villains they want us to be." Arlen exhaled. "Then we prepare. The summit has only just begun, but this war of shadows might last far longer than the last." The human flag fluttered. In the artificial breeze, a lone symbol of defiance amidst the looming storm. The grand hall of the Galactic Concord was alive with whispers and shifting glances, as Ambassador Kira Holt took her seat once more. The holographic projection above the chamber flickered to life, displaying the terms of the unified disarmament agreement, a blueprint that was meant to end the war but instead felt like a death sentence. Delegates leaned forward, eager or wary, as Chairperson Lear Keth, an elder Valari statesman with cold, calculating eyes, began the presentation. The path to peace, Lear Keth intoned, requires sacrifice from all parties. To prevent future conflicts, each member must reduce military forces to a sustainable level. We offer a balanced and equitable framework. Balanced, but only if you ignored the glaring exception for humanity. The terms demanded that humans dismantle 85% of their military infrastructure. Entire fleets, weapons factories, and frontier colonies would be handed over to the conquered for neutral management. By contrast, the Valari and Zarn were asked to reduce only 20 to 30%. Kira felt a surge of anger tightening her chest. The words masked blatant discrimination, a crippling attempt to hobble humanity's rise. It wasn't peace. It was chains. Ceylon Voran's gaze skimmed over the human delegation with thinly veiled contempt, a reminder that the Valari saw humans as dangerous children to be disciplined. Kira's voice cut through the growing murmurs. On what basis do you demand this? The humans have fought harder, bled more, and saved countless lives across the war's many fronts. We are not the aggressors here. Lear Keth's smile was thin, his response practiced. Humanity's cultural tendencies toward aggression necessitate greater oversight. This is not punishment, but precaution. A delegate from the crystalline, Thalaran species raised an eyebrow. Is it fair to judge an entire species by a few isolated conflicts? Have we not all committed acts in this war? Lear Keth dismissed the challenge with a wave. The Concord must protect its future. Later, in a dimly lit side chamber, Kira conferred with her advisors. This is a political trap, she said, pacing. They want us disarmed and isolated while they consolidate power. Lieutenant Commander Arlen's voice was grim. We've found more evidence of sabotage. Our colonies are losing supply ships, and propaganda broadcasts frame us as reckless warmongers. Kira slammed her fist against the table. We cannot accept these terms. They expect us to bow and beg for peace on their terms. We will not. Her strategist, Dr. Leon, tapped her datapad thoughtfully. If we reject the agreement outright, the conquered will impose economic sanctions and blockade our systems. It could cripple our growth and isolate us diplomatically. Kira's eyes burned with resolve. Then we prepare for that. We'll make them regret underestimating humanity. As the summit sessions wore on, Kira noticed subtle shifts in behavior. Several delegates approached her privately, their voices hushed and nervous. One was Ambassador Frelta, a minor species representative from the volcanic world of Tyran. I admire your strength, Ambassador Holt. The Concord's arrogance blinds them. Many of us see the writing on the wall. Your fight is our fight. Others nodded in agreement, offering discreet support. But there were darker forces at play too. Kira intercepted a communication from an unknown source. A warning. The Concord was orchestrating a secret vote to pass the agreement quickly, bypassing normal debate and transparency. They feared a prolonged discussion that might expose their bias. The day before the scheduled vote, Kira held a private press briefing, inviting galactic journalists and independent broadcasters. She unveiled the evidence of sabotage, the discriminatory terms, and the shadowy vote. Her tone was fierce, but controlled. We came to this summit seeking peace, she said, voice echoing across millions of feeds. But peace built on chains is no peace at all. We refuse to be shackled by fear and prejudice. Across the galaxy, viewers watched in stunned silence. Some cheered, others feared what her defiance might mean. That evening, as the summit prepared for the decisive vote, whispers spread like wildfire. Some conquered delegates whispered of calling security to silence the humans. Others debated whether to accept the terms and risk alienating the rising human power. Kira stood in the quiet corridor, staring out at the stars beyond the transparent walls. Arlen joined her quietly. Tomorrow changes everything. She nodded. Slowly, heart steady. If they want a fight, we'll give them one. On our terms. The galaxy held its breath. The Peace Summit, meant to end centuries of bloodshed, was fast becoming the stage for a new war, one where humanity refused to kneel. The Grand Hall was packed to capacity, every seat filled with the galaxy's most powerful and proud. Holocameras hovered like metallic birds, broadcasting live to billions of worlds, their feeds flickering across starships, colonies, and even the smallest outposts in the outer reaches. The final vote on the unified disarmament agreement was about to begin, and the air was thick with anticipation or something darker. A nervous energy hummed beneath the polished veneer of diplomacy. Ambassador Kira Holt sat at the human delegation's place, her face calm, but her mind racing. She had spent hours preparing, knowing the moment would come when she had to speak, for all of humanity, not as a supplicant, but as a voice of fierce resolve. The chamber quieted as Chairperson Learketh rose. His voice carried an icy authority. The Council will now proceed with the final vote on the agreement. All delegates are reminded of their duty to peace and stability. Kira stood smoothly, drawing the attention of every eye. The hum of whispered conversations died down as she stepped forward to the central podium, her every movement deliberate. Her voice, when she spoke, was clear and unwavering. Esteemed delegates, honored representatives of countless species, I stand here not just as a human, but as the voice of a species wronged by the very institution that claims to seek peace. She paused, letting her words sink in. The terms laid before us are not terms of peace. They are terms of submission. We are asked to disarm nearly all of our defenses, to relinquish control over our colonies, and to accept a narrative that paints us as warmongers and aggressors. All this, while others keep their weapons and fleets intact. A murmur rose in the hall. Kira's gaze cut through it, steel and fire. Peace that demands the loss of freedom is a lie. It is a cage gilded in empty promises, and it is a future humanity refuses to accept. She raised her datapad, and the chamber's holoscreens shifted to reveal evidence, intercepted communications, footage of sabotage blamed on humans, propaganda broadcasts that twisted the truth. The images were undeniable. The delegates shifted uncomfortably, some faces blanching, others scowling. Kira's voice dropped, sharp as a blade. The Concord claims to protect peace, yet it orchestrates deception to crush a rising power. We offered trust. Instead, we were offered chains. She took a breath, then declared, her voice ringing with finality. Humanity will not be bound by this betrayal. We are withdrawing from these negotiations. The stunned silence that followed was shattered as the human delegation rose in unison. The metallic click of chairs sliding back echoed like a drumbeat of defiance. Kira turned on her heel and strode toward the exit, flanked by her officers. The hall erupted, shouts of outrage, cries of betrayal, and some who whispered admiration. Chairperson Learketh banged his gavel, voice booming. Ambassador Holt, this is an unprecedented breach of protocol. Return to your seats. Kira paused at the doorway, looking back one last time. Peace built on lies is no peace at all, she said. Remember that. Then she stepped out. Outside the chamber, the corridors flooded with confusion and chaos. Reporters clamored for statements, diplomats fumed behind guarded doors, and security forces scrambled to maintain order. On the wide viewing platforms, holographic displays replayed Kira's speech over and over, the phrase, walkout, trending. Instantly across every communication channel, news anchors on distant worlds debated fiercely. Was humanity's withdrawal reckless or courageous? Has the Peace Summit failed before it even began? Will this lead to war? Meanwhile, back in the human delegation's command center, Kira's team worked swiftly. We knew this would be a shock, Arlen said, but we have to prepare for retaliation. Economic sanctions, blockades, maybe worse. Kira nodded. Then we show them that humans don't crumble under pressure. We rebuild alliances where they exist, strengthen our defenses, and let the galaxy know we stand for respect, not submission. Her hollow screen lit up with a message from Ambassador Frelta of Tiran. We stand with you. This changes everything. A small smile flickered across Kira's lips. The walkout was more than a protest. It was a declaration. Humanity was no longer willing to be a footnote in galactic politics. They would write their own story. Far from the summit, in the depths of space, fleets stirred. Human starships once slated for decommissioning now buzzed with renewed life. Engineers and scientists raced to retrofit, upgrade, and arm. Kira's broadcast echoed across the void. We will not be silenced. We will not be shackled. Humanity's spirit is unbreakable. The galaxy watched in stunned silence, the echoes of the walkout rippling through every star system. On Earth, the news of the walkout exploded like a supernova. Across the sprawling cities, barren outposts, and deep space colonies, millions of humans watched Ambassador Kira Holt's defiant speech play over holoscreens and broadcasts. The words ignited a fierce pride, a reminder that humanity would not bow to the galaxy's old powers. In the massive command center beneath the Earth Defense Headquarters, Kira stood before a wide table filled with military leaders, scientists, diplomats, and independent voices, all united by a single purpose: to prepare humanity for the storm ahead. We have been told to disarm, to shrink back, to surrender our colonies, Kira said, her voice ringing with conviction. But we know our strength is in our freedom. We will not give it up. Commander Arlen tapped a holomap showing the location of key human colonies and supply lines. The Concord's sanctions are already tightening. Trade routes are being cut off, and fleets are shadowing our borders. Dr. Leon, the chief strategist, added, we need new alliances, with species who share our vision, who've suffered under the Concord's heavy hand. Kira nodded. Then we build the Terran Independent Accord. Across the stars, whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire. Minor species and disenfranchised groups, once cowed by the might of the Galactic Concord, began reaching out to humanity. Pirates, traders, and former soldiers joined the call for justice, drawn to the promise of a galaxy where no species ruled unchecked. On the volcanic world of Tiran, Ambassador Frelta's voice echoed in encrypted transmissions. We join you, Ambassador Holt. The time has come to break the chains. From the shadowed asteroid belts of the Vexari system, outlaw fleets pledged their support, trading their combat expertise for a chance at freedom. Kira's team worked tirelessly, weaving a coalition of outcasts and idealists who called themselves the Terran Independent Accord, TIA, a new force rising from the ashes of old grudges and broken promises. Back on Earth, the technological renaissance was in full swing. Factories hummed with the creation of advanced weaponry, starships equipped with next-generation stealth systems and AI-driven combat drones. The pace was furious, fueled by a combination of necessity and unyielding spirit. In the testing bays, engineers unveiled the Phalanx defense platform, a modular fleet of warships capable of rapid reconfiguration for attack, defense, or reconnaissance. It was a symbol of human innovation, resilience, and adaptability. Kira watched as a squadron of these ships launched into the black, their sleek hulls cutting through space like blades. Let the Concord see what it means to fight a cornered species, she said. Meanwhile, propaganda wars raged across the galaxy. The Galactic Concord branded humans as renegades, warmongers, and traitors. They broadcast distorted footage, twisted words, and fear-mongering speeches to rally their citizens against the human threat. But in quieter corners of the galaxy, the narrative was different. Underground networks shared Kira's speech, celebrating humanity's courage and calling for rebellion against an unjust system. On the remote moon of Elysium 4, a gathering of dissidents from various species hoisted the Terran flag alongside their own banners, chanting in unison, "Freedom for all, down with the Concord." The message was clear. Humanity's defiance was sparking a galaxy-wide awakening. Back in the summit's shattered corridors, rumors of the Terran Independent Accord's growing power unsettled even the most hardened Concord leaders. Sale and Vorin met with General Karshakal in a secret chamber, frustration evident on their faces. The humans are rallying allies faster than anticipated, Salen growled. If we don't act soon, we risk losing control. Karshakal nodded grimly. Then the next strike must be decisive. We cannot allow the TIA to become a beacon for rebellion. But even as they plotted, cracks formed within the Concord's once monolithic unity. Some species quietly reconsidered their loyalty, wary of being caught on the wrong side of history. As the starry void stretched infinitely, Kira stood before the Terran Independent Accord's newly formed council, a mix of humans and alien representatives. Her voice was steady, filled with the weight of command and hope. We did not choose this war, but we will not shy away from it. Together we will forge a future where no species fears the other, where peace is earned, not dictated. Her gaze swept over the council chambers, where diverse faces reflected hope, determination, and unbreakable will. The rallying cry was clear. Humanity was not alone. The galaxy was changing, and the old order would tremble. The galaxy's peace had crumbled, but war had not yet broken out in full daylight. Instead, it simmered in the shadows where secret agents, espionage, and covert strikes set the stage for the coming storm. Deep within a clandestine base orbiting the barren moon of Zerath, Ambassador Kira Holt stood with her intelligence chief, Commander Arlen. Around them, holographic maps flickered, showing the movements of conquered fleets and suspected sabotage points. Salan Vorin's forces are tightening the noose, Arlen reported grimly. We've identified 3 major sabotage cells operating near our supply lines. They're using disguised mercenaries and tech smuggled from conquered stockpiles. Kira's jaw clenched. They want us crippled before we can strike back. Her fingers danced over the console, isolating recent transmissions intercepted from Valari and Zarn command centers. These attacks are coordinated. It's a warning, but also a test, to see how far we'll push back. Arlen nodded. We've captured some operatives, but extracting information is difficult. Their loyalty is fanatical, and they know we're watching. Kira's eyes hardened. Then we'll have to fight fire with fire. Send in the Shadow Wolves. The Shadow Wolves were humanity's elite covert task force. Operatives trained for infiltration, sabotage, and intelligence gathering behind enemy lines. Cloaked in the darkness of space and equipped with cutting-edge stealth technology, they were the unseen blade in this war of shadows. Lieutenant Commander Celine Vasquez led the team, her reputation as unyielding as the cold vacuum outside. In D, a briefing room lit by the pale glow of tactical schematics, she outlined their mission. We're hitting the heart of the sabotage network. Our target, the Valari supply hub on Valen 9. If we destroy their staging grounds, it will buy us time and disrupt their operations. The team nodded, ready. For them, the war wasn't about politics or diplomacy. It was survival, pure and simple. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Concord's marble halls, Valari diplomat Selan Vorin paced with barely concealed irritation. His carefully constructed plans were unraveling faster than expected. The humans are more resourceful than we believed. He snapped to General Karshakal. Their covert teams are disrupting our supply lines and exposing our agents. Karshakal's eyes gleamed with cold resolve. Then we escalate, mobilize the fleets around human colonies, show them the consequences of rebellion. Salen's gaze flickered to the large hollow map showing human systems fortified with new defensive installations. They will bleed if they continue this defiance. Back on Earth, Kira monitored the Shadow Wolves' operation in real time. The team had infiltrated Valen 9 under the cover of a meteor shower, slipping past patrols and disabling security nodes with precision. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life. Target secured. Charges set. Celine's voice was calm but urgent. Exfil in 30 seconds. Enemy reinforcements inbound. Kira's heart pounded. Return to base safely. The explosions ripped through the Valari supply depot, sending shockwaves across the nearby asteroid fields. The destruction was a message. Humanity would not be passive victims, but the Concord was not silent. As the Valari and Zarn fleets moved closer to human systems, whispers of warships arming and soldiers mobilizing, became impossible to ignore. The once fragile veil of peace was torn apart by growing distrust and the scent of blood. Kira gathered her council again. The time for shadows is ending. We must prepare for open conflict. Dr. Leon's eyes were steady. Our fleets need to be ready to defend key systems, but we should also consider striking preemptively, disrupt their command centers before they can act. Arlen added, "We have new allies joining the Terran Independent Accord. Their support will be crucial." Kira's gaze hardened. "Then we train harder, fight smarter, and make sure that when the first shot is fired, it will be a shot heard across the galaxy." In the dark reaches of space among distant stars, the shadow of war lengthened. The galaxy waited, breath held, for the inevitable clash that would decide not just the fate of humanity, but the future of all species bound by the fragile hope of peace. And somewhere in the silence between stars, humanity prepared to fight, not for submission but for survival and freedom. The calm before the storm was shattered in the dead of night. On the fringes of the Lysara system, a Terran Independent Accord outpost floated silently, nestled in the shadow of a gas giant. Its sensors picked up an incoming fleet. Conquered, warships, massive and glinting cold in the void, advancing with deadly precision. Commander Arlen stared at the tactical display, his jaw tight. "They're here. This isn't a probe, it's a full-scale assault." Ambassador Kira Holt stood behind him, her expression resolute. "Prepare the defenses. Alert all nearby colonies. This is the beginning." The Valari-led fleet dropped. Out of warp just beyond Lysara's atmosphere, sleek dreadnoughts and swift frigates forming a crescent of menace. Their target, the TIA outpost, a symbol of humanity's defiance. The outpost's automated turrets roared to life, tracing the incoming vessels with deadly arcs of plasma. Human fighter squadrons scrambled from hidden hangars, weaving through the onslaught with practiced agility. "Hold the line!" Kira's voice crackled over the comms, steady and commanding. Lieutenant Commander Selena Vasquez led a squadron of stealth fighters in a daring counterattack. They darted between massive Conquered warships, unleashing missile barrages before vanishing into asteroid clusters. "The Shadow Wolves won't let them take Lysara without a fight," Selena radioed, her voice calm under fire. Despite the fierce resistance, the Concord forces pressed their advantage, bombarding the outpost's shield generators and pushing humanity's defenders to their limits. On Earth, the news of the attack spread like wildfire. Millions tuned in as Kira's broadcast cut through the panic and fear. "This is not just an assault on Lysara," she declared, standing firm before a world watching with bated breath. "It is an attack on freedom itself. Humanity will not surrender. We fight, not because we want war, but because we must." Her words galvanized the Terran Independent Accord's forces. Across multiple systems, fleets prepared to mobilize, colonies fortified their defenses, and new recruits answered the call to arms. In the midst of battle, Kira received a private transmission from an unexpected source. "Ambassador Holt," came the voice of Ambassador Frelta from Tiran, calm but urgent. "The Concord's strike was planned in secret. Some within the Conquered Council oppose this aggression, but they are silenced." Kira frowned. "What do you propose?" "An alliance of those opposed to the war, within the Conquered and without. We can open secret channels to negotiate a ceasefire, but only if we show strength." Kira's mind raced. This was a chance, fragile and dangerous, to alter the course of the war. Back at Lysara, the battle raged on. The outpost's shields flickered under relentless fire, but human ingenuity shone through. Engineers rerouted power to critical systems while fighter pilots coordinated precise strikes on enemy vessels. Selene's squadron targeted the enemy's command frigate, their missiles finding weak points in the armor. Command frigate crippled. Selene reported, "Enemy coordination is faltering." The Conquered fleet faltered, their assault losing cohesion. Slowly, the tide of battle began to turn. As the dust settled over Lysara, Kira convened a war council. "We have won this battle," she said, "but the war is far from over. The Conquered's aggression reveals their fear of a free humanity." Dr. Leon looked to the maps. We must leverage this victory to rally more species. The more allies we have, the stronger our position at the negotiation table. Arlen added, and we need to strike at the heart of their supply lines and to keep them off balance. Kira nodded, resolve hardening like tempered steel. Then we prepare. The spark has ignited. Now we must fan the flames. Far across the galaxy, in the glittering towers of the Galactic Concord, whispers of rebellion and resistance stirred uneasily. The war that began with words now blazed with fire, and no one could say where it would end. For humanity and their allies, the fight for freedom had become a war for survival. The war had scarred the galaxy, but it had also awakened it. On the bridge of the Ardent Resolve, Kira Holt stood watching the stars streak past as her flagship led a coalition fleet through the outer reaches of the Galactic Concord's core systems. Behind her, the Terran Independent Accord had grown from a fledgling rebellion into a formidable force, united by the conviction that freedom was worth every sacrifice. This is it, Arlen said, stepping beside her. The Concord's leadership is vulnerable. Their unity is shattered. Kira nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. We're not just fighting for survival anymore, we're fighting to build something better. The diplomatic channels, once silent or hostile, now buzzed with activity. Factions within the Concord who opposed the war reached out through secret emissaries, seeking an alliance that might bring an end to decades of oppression. Ambassador. Frailta's warning had proven true. The aggressive strike on Lasara fractured the Concord Council. Some species sought peace, others clung to power. Kira prepared a proposal that was bold and unprecedented, a galactic charter guaranteeing sovereignty, mutual respect, and shared governance, a new foundation for coexistence. But not all were ready to embrace peace. On the darkened bridge of the Concord flagship Obsidian Wrath, General Karshakal snarled at the reports. We lose ground with every battle, and now traitors within our own ranks seek to betray us. Salen Vorin, once the ruthless face of Concord oppression, now found himself cornered by shifting alliances and his own fading influence. The galaxy was changing. The old order was crumbling. In the final battle for the core world of Aurealis, the fleets clashed with a ferocity unmatched in recent history. The Terran Independent Accord fought with unyielding courage, not as conquerors but as liberators. Every victory was a testament to the unity of species that once lived in fear and mistrust. Kira's flagship led the charge, weaving through enemy fire and coordinating strikes that shattered the Concord's hold. When the dust finally settled, the Concord Council convened, but this time as a new assembly. Representatives from former enemies sat side by side with those who had been oppressed. Kira stepped forward to address the gathering. We stand at the dawn of a new era, one forged not in conquest, but in understanding. Humanity did not seek war, but neither did we accept chains. Her voice resonated through the chamber. Let this charter be a promise, that no species will be forced to submit, and no voice will be silenced. The future belongs to all of us, together. The Galactic Charter was signed amid great ceremony. Old grudges were set aside and new alliances forged. The Terran Independent Accord became the core of a revitalized Galactic Assembly, a beacon of hope and cooperation. Back on Earth, Kira looked up at the night sky, stars shimmering with the promise of endless possibilities. We fought for freedom, she said softly, and now we build the peace we dreamed of. The galaxy was forever changed, not by domination, but by the strength of a species that refused to back down, and so humanity's story continued, not as conquerors, but as leaders who showed the stars what it truly meant to be free.